The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through Le Bernardin, followed by a silence so heavy it felt like it could crush bones. Phoenix Mercer, the billionaire CEO of Mercer Global, had just dismissed his third server of the night. No one survived Table 1. The staff at New York's most exclusive restaurant were trembling, terrified of the man who could end careers with a single phone call. But then Hallie Bennett walked out of the kitchen. She didn't shake. She didn't apologize. She approached the devil himself and did the one thing nobody expected. She told him no. The atmosphere inside Le Bernardin on West 51st Street was not just tense. It was suffocating. It was a Tuesday night in November, the kind of biting New York evening where the wind whipped off the Hudson River and cut through the thickest wool coats. But inside the 3 Michelin star establishment, the temperature was controlled, the lighting was golden, and the fear was palpable. The source of that fear sat at the prime corner table, overlooking the main dining room like a monarch surveying a battlefield. Phoenix Mercer. At 34, he was the ruthless face of modern venture capital. He had acquired, stripped, and sold off 3 major pharmaceutical companies in the last fiscal quarter alone. His net worth hovered in the billions, but his reputation was worth far less. In the hospitality industry, he was known simply as the Butcher. "Take it away," Phoenix said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was a low, gravelly baritone that carried the weight of absolute authority. The young waiter, a boy named Timothy, who had only started 2 weeks ago, trembled as he reached for the plate of Campacci Crudo. Is there something wrong with the dish, Mr. Mercer? I can have the chef." "I didn't ask for a conversation," Phoenix cut in, his eyes not leaving the screen of his tablet. He was tracking the Asian markets, barely acknowledging the human being standing beside him. "I asked you to take it away. You poured the sparkling water with your left hand across my line of sight while I was reading. You cast a shadow. You are clumsy. Leave the table. Send someone competent." Timothy looked like he was about to cry. He snatched the plate and retreated to the kitchen, his face burning red. From the service station, the maitre d', a seasoned Frenchman named Gustave, wiped sweat from his forehead. This was a disaster. Phoenix Mercer was a major investor in the holding company that owned the building. If he was unhappy, everyone suffered. "Who is next?" Gustave hissed to the huddled group of servers. "Who takes the table?" Nobody moved. To serve Phoenix Mercer was to play Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. He had already fired a sommelier for recommending a vintage he deemed pedestrian and dismissed Timothy for casting a shadow. "I'll do it." The voice was calm, contrasting sharply with the panic in the kitchen. Hallie Bennett stepped forward, tightening the apron around her waist. She was 26, with sharp features and tired eyes that had seen too much of the harsh side of life. She had only been working at the restaurant for 3 months, picking up the shifts nobody else wanted. "Hallie, no," Gustave warned. "You are abrasive. Mr. Mercer requires finesse, subservience. He requires a waiter who isn't shaking so hard they rattle the silverware," Hallie countered, checking her reflection in the stainless steel pass. She adjusted her collar. "Besides, I need the tips. My rent is due in 3 days, and the landlord isn't accepting excuses." Gustave looked at her. He knew her situation, or at least he knew she was desperate. She worked doubles, never complained, and had a strange, intense focus that unsettled the other staff. She wasn't just a waitress. She moved with the efficiency of a soldier. "Be careful," Gustave whispered. "He is in a mood tonight. The rumors say he is closing a deal with the Trident Group tomorrow. He is looking for blood." Hallie froze for a fraction of a second at the mention of the Trident Group. Her grip on her tray tightened, her knuckles turning white. A dark, cold shadow passed over her eyes, but she blinked it away instantly. "Let him look," Hallie said, grabbing a fresh bottle of San Pellegrino and a crystal glass. "I've dealt with worse than a man in a $3,000 suit." She pushed through the swinging doors and walked onto the floor. She didn't rush, she didn't lower her head. She walked with a rhythmic, confident stride straight toward the corner table where the billionaire sat, scrolling through emails that decided the fate of thousands of employees. She placed the glass down. No shadow. Perfect placement. She poured the water. Not a drop spilled. Phoenix didn't look up. "I hope you are smarter than the last one." "I'm here to serve dinner, Mr. Mercer, not take an IQ test," Hallie said, her voice even. "Although, if I were you, I'd stop shorting the yen before the Tokyo exchange opens in an hour. The volatility index is spiking." Phoenix stopped. His finger hovered over his tablet. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his head. For the first time that night, the billionaire looked at the waitress. He had piercing blue eyes, cold as ice, and a jawline that looked carved from granite. He stared at her, waiting for her to flinch. Hallie didn't flinch. She stared right back. "What did you say?" Phoenix asked, his voice dropping an octave. "The menu," Hallie said, smoothly transitioning as she handed him the leather-bound book. "I recommend the Dover sole, and the yen is unstable. Just a casual observation from someone who listens." Phoenix narrowed his eyes. The air between them crackled with sudden, unexpected tension. He wasn't used to the help speaking. He certainly wasn't used to the help giving him financial advice. "You're a waitress." He spat the word out like an insult. "Stick to the specials. Leave the market to the adults." "Of course, sir," Hallie said, her face a mask of professional politeness, though her eyes burned with a hidden fire. "The Dover sole is excellent." She turned to walk away. "Wait," Phoenix commanded. Hallie stopped and turned back. "I don't want the sole," Phoenix said, closing the menu. "I want something that isn't on the menu. A challenge." "A challenge, sir?" "I want a risotto. But not just any risotto. I want it made with white truffles from Alba, the ones flown in this morning. And I want it paired with a 1996 Chateau Lafite Rothschild. And I want it in 20 minutes. If it takes 21 minutes, I'm buying this restaurant and firing you myself." It was an impossible request. Risotto took 25 minutes minimum to cook properly. The wine would need decanting. Hallie looked at her watch. 20 minutes. Start the clock." The kitchen exploded into chaos the moment Hallie kicked open the doors. "He wants what?" screamed Chef Marco, a volatile man who treated his sauces like his children. "Risotto. In 20 minutes. Impossible. The rice needs to absorb the stock slowly. If I rush it, it will be chalky. I refuse." "You don't refuse," Hallie said, her voice cutting through the panic. She grabbed an apron and threw it over her uniform. "Gustav, get the key to the cellar. Find the 96 Lafite. Do not shake it. Open it at the table, not here. It needs to breathe in the glass. We don't have time for the decanter to sit." "And the rice," Marco shouted, slamming a pan onto the burner. "Physics is physics, Hallie." "Use 2 pans," Hallie said, moving beside him, grabbing the shallots and chopping them with a speed that made the sous chefs gasp. "Start the stock in one. Toast the rice in the other at a higher heat than usual, then combine. Constant agitation. It releases the starch faster. We can shave 4 minutes off if we don't stop stirring. I'll do the stirring. You prep the truffles." "You are a waitress," Marco yelled. "Get out of my line." "Do you want to explain to the owner why he lost his biggest investor?" Hallie snapped, turning to face the chef. Her eyes were fierce. "I grew up in a kitchen, Marco. Trust me, or get fired. Your choice." Marco hesitated, looked at the determination in her face, and grunted. "Start stirring." For 18 minutes, the kitchen was a blur of motion. Hallie's arm burned as she whipped the wooden spoon through the arborio rice, adding the hot chicken stock ladle by ladle. She was sweating, her hair sticking to her forehead. But she didn't stop. She watched the grains transform, swelling, becoming creamy. "Taste," she ordered. Marco tasted. His eyes widened. "Al dente. Perfect. Plate it. Truffles on top. Go." Hallie stripped off the dirty apron, smoothed her uniform, checked her reflection in the metal pass again to ensure not a hair was out of place, and picked up the tray. She walked back onto the floor. The restaurant was silent. Other diners were watching. The staff was watching. Gustave was praying in the corner. Phoenix Mercer was looking at his Patek Philippe watch. As the second hand ticked toward the 20-minute mark, Halle placed the steaming plate in front of him. 19 minutes and 40 seconds, Halle said, her breathing controlled, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. Gustave arrived a second later, pouring the deep red wine into the large Bordeaux glass. Phoenix looked at the risotto. The aroma of the white truffles hit him, earthy, pungent, luxurious. He picked up his fork. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. He took a bite. He chewed slowly. He took a sip of the wine. He set the fork down and looked at Halle. His expression was unreadable. "The rice is cooked perfectly." "How?" "High-heat toast, constant agitation, double pan method," Halle recited. "Physics, sir." Phoenix leaned back in his chair. The hostility was still there, but something else had crept in. Curiosity. "You know finance. You know high-end culinary technique. You speak with the diction of a private school graduate, yet you are waiting tables at Le Bernardin and wearing shoes that have been resoled twice." Halle stiffened. He had noticed her shoes. He noticed everything. "We all have our stories, Mr. Mercer," she said coldly. "Is there anything else?" "Sit down," Phoenix said. "Sir, that is against protocol. I own the building protocol. Sit down." He gestured to the empty chair opposite him. Halle hesitated, then sat on the edge of the velvet chair. She kept her back straight. "What is your name?" "Halle. Halle Bennett." "Well, Miss Bennett." Phoenix took another sip of the wine. "You are wasted here, and you are hiding something. Nobody knows about the Trident Group deal. It hasn't been announced. It was a closed-door meeting in Zurich 3 days ago. How did you know?" Halle's blood ran cold. She had slipped up. When she mentioned the Trident Group earlier, it was a reflex. "I read the papers," she lied. "It wasn't in the papers." Phoenix's voice turned dangerous. He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers like a predator. "Who are you? Are you a corporate spy? A journalist?" "I'm a nobody," Halle said, standing up abruptly. "I need to check on my other tables." "I bought them," Phoenix said calmly. Halle froze. "Excuse me?" "I bought the other tables time. I told Gustave to clear the section. It's just you and me." Phoenix pulled a folded document from his suit pocket and threw it on the table. "You mentioned the Trident deal. You mentioned the yen. You clearly have a background in analytics. So tell me, Miss Bennett, if you are so smart, look at this." He pushed the paper toward her. It was a term sheet for the merger with Trident. "Tell me where the trap is," Phoenix challenged. "My lawyers say it's clean. My board says it's clean. But my gut says something is wrong. You have 5 minutes. Find the flaw, and I'll tip you $10,000. Fail, and I'll have you banned from working in this city again." Halle looked at the paper. She shouldn't do this. She should walk away. This man, Phoenix Mercer, represented everything she hated. The arrogance, the power, the money, but $10,000. That was her mother's surgery. That was freedom from the debt collectors. She reached out and took the document. Her eyes scanned the legal jargon, the dense paragraphs of liabilities and assets. She read faster than most people could think. It was a skill she had honed years ago in a life she had been forced to leave behind. She stopped on page 3, subsection 4, paragraph B. She grabbed a pen from her apron pocket and circled the paragraph violently. She tossed the paper back to him. "There," she said. Phoenix looked at the circle. "The subsidiary liability clause? It's standard." "It's not standard," Hallie said, her voice low and intense. "Look at the jurisdiction. It cites the Cayman courts, but the assets are held in a blind trust in Delaware. If Trident declares bankruptcy on their manufacturing arm within 6 months, which they will given their current burn rate, that clause allows them to liquidate your assets to cover their debt. It's a Trojan horse. They aren't merging with you, Mr. Mercer. They are looking for a bailout disguised as a partnership. Sign that, and you lose your company in a year." Phoenix stared at the paper. He read the clause again. His eyes widened. He pulled out his phone and began typing furiously. He stopped, looked up at Halle, and for the first time the mask of the billionaire slipped. He looked shocked. "My entire legal team missed that," he whispered. "Your legal team is paid to say yes," Halle said. "I'm paid to serve risotto." Phoenix stood up. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a checkbook, and scribbled something. He tore the check out and handed it to her. "$20,000, Phoenix said. "Keep the change." Halle looked at the check. It was real. "But you're not working here anymore," Phoenix added, buttoning his jacket. "What?" Halle gasped. "You can't fire me. I just saved your company." "I'm not firing you," Phoenix said, a small, dangerous smile playing on his lips. "I'm hiring you. My personal assistant quit this morning. Be at my office at Mercer Global, 7 a.m. sharp tomorrow. Don't be late, and wear better shoes." He turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving Halle standing there with a check for $20,000 and a job offer from the devil himself. But as Halle watched him leave, her hand went to the locket around her neck. She opened it. Inside was a picture of an older man, her father, the man Phoenix Mercer had destroyed 5 years ago. "I'm in," she whispered to the empty restaurant. "I'm finally in." The Mercer Global headquarters was a monolith of glass and steel, piercing the sky of lower Manhattan. To the average pedestrian, it was just another skyscraper. To the financial world, it was a fortress. Halle Bennett stood in the lobby at 6:45 a.m. She was wearing a charcoal pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse she had bought the night before at a discount outlet. It wasn't designer, but it was tailored, and she wore it like armor. She had spent the last of her savings on a pair of sensible professional heels, no more worn-out soles. She tapped her ID badge against the turnstile. It beeped green. Access granted. "You must be the new victim," a voice drawled from behind her. Halle turned to see a woman who looked like she had been airbrushed into existence. Blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, makeup flawless, wearing a suit that cost more than Halle's entire education. "I'm Halle, Mr. Mercer's new EA." "I know who you are," the woman said, looking Halle up and down with a sneer of distaste. "I'm Lydia Grant, VP of Communications. I handle the image of this company. And frankly, hiring a waitress to run the CEO's office is a PR nightmare waiting to happen. If you spill coffee on a term sheet, don't bother packing. Just leave." "I don't drink coffee, Miss Grant," Halle said, stepping into the elevator and pressing the button for the top floor. "And I don't spill." The elevator ride was silent and icy. When the doors opened on the 50th floor, the chaos hit them. Phones were ringing, Analysts were running down hallways with tablets, and the ticker tape running along the wall showed the Asian markets crashing, exactly as Hallie had predicted the night before. Hallie walked straight to the desk outside the massive double doors of the CEO's office. It was covered in stacks of unfiled paper. "Mercer is in a mood," Lydia warned, checking her reflection in her phone. "The Japanese yen situation has everyone on edge. He's firing people today. Try not to be first." Hallie ignored her and knocked on the door. "Enter!" Phoenix's voice boomed. Hallie walked in. The office was expansive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the harbour. Phoenix was pacing, a headset on, speaking rapid-fire Mandarin. He signalled for Hallie to wait. He pointed to a tablet on his desk and made a slashing motion across his throat. Hallie looked at the tablet. It was a live video feed of a negotiation with a supplier in Berlin. The translator was struggling. Phoenix ripped the headset off. "They aren't budging on the shipping tariffs. If we don't close this by noon, the logistics chain collapses." He looked at Hallie. "You're early." "You said 7 a.m. It's 6:58, Hallie replied. She walked over to the desk, organizing the mess of papers into neat piles as she spoke. "And they aren't budging because you're negotiating in English. The supplier, Herr Bauer, is old school. He respects culture more than contracts." Phoenix narrowed his eyes. "And I suppose you speak German, too?" "My father insisted I learn languages. He said the world was small." Hallie picked up the tablet. "May I?" Phoenix hesitated, then nodded. "If you lose this deal, you owe me $20,000. Hallie tapped the microphone button. "Guten Morgen, Herr Bauer," she said, her accent flawless. Here Mercer speaks through a new voice. "We understand your concerns regarding the tariffs." Phoenix watched, stunned, as Hallie navigated the conversation. She didn't just translate, she charmed. She asked about Bauer's famous vineyard in the Rhine Valley. She made a joke about Bavarian weather. Within 10 minutes, the grim face of Herr Bauer on the screen softened. He laughed. "Tell Mr. Mercer we accept the terms," Bauer said in German, "and tell him he finally hired someone with manners." Hallie ended the call. "Deal closed. Shipping resumes tomorrow." Phoenix sat on the edge of his desk, crossing his arms. The morning sun caught the sharp angles of his face. For a second, he didn't look like a billionaire tyrant. He looked like a man impressed. "Who was your father?" Phoenix asked quietly. "Waitresses don't speak Mandarin and German. They don't understand international logistics." Hallie froze. This was the danger zone. Her father was David Bennett, the owner of Bennett Tech, a company Phoenix Mercer had hostilely taken over, stripped for parts, and bankrupted 5 years ago. The stress had caused her father a stroke he never fully recovered from. That was why she was here, to find the evidence that the takeover was illegal. "He was a teacher," Hallie lied smoothly. "He taught me that knowledge is the only thing they can't repossess." Phoenix studied her for a long moment. He seemed to be looking for a crack in her facade. "Get your notebook," Phoenix said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "We're going out." "Out where?" "Arthur Pendleton is in town, the oil tycoon. He's holding court at the St. Regis. He refuses to sign the drilling rights contract because he thinks I'm a soulless city boy. You're going to help me convince him otherwise." "Me? Why?" "Because," Phoenix walked to the door, "you have a way of disarming people, and Pendleton loves a pretty face. Don't make me regret this." Hallie grabbed her notepad. As she followed him out, she passed Lydia Grant's desk. Lydia looked up, expecting to see Hallie in tears. Instead, she saw Hallie walking stride for stride with the CEO. Lydia's eyes narrowed into slits. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Get me a background check on Hallie Bennett. Deep dive. I want to know everything. Where she went to school, who she dated, and what she's hiding. The St. Regis Hotel was a palace of old-world money, crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, and the smell of expensive cigars. Arthur Pendleton was holding a private lunch in the library room. When Phoenix and Hallie arrived, Pendleton was already 3 scotches deep. He was a massive man with a white cowboy hat and a demeanor that took up the whole room. "Mercer," Pendleton boomed. "I told you I ain't signing. I don't trust a man who's never got dirt under his fingernails." "Arthur," Phoenix said, putting on a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes, "I brought you a revised proposal. And I brought my associate, Miss Bennett." Pendleton looked at Hallie. "Associate? She looks too young to be a shark like you." "I'm not a shark, Mr. Pendleton," Hallie said, stepping forward. "I'm the one who keeps the sharks fed." Pendleton roared with laughter. "I like her. Sit down, darling. Have a drink." The lunch was a minefield. Pendleton grilled Phoenix on oil futures, environmental regulations, and political swaying. Phoenix answered with cold, hard facts. Pendleton looked bored. Then the conversation shifted. "You know," Pendleton said, eyeing Phoenix, "a man's character is defined by what he protects. You don't protect anything, Mercer. You just acquire. That's why I won't sell to you. You'll gut my company like a fish." Phoenix's jaw tightened. "I optimize efficiency, Arthur." "You destroy legacies," Pendleton countered, "like you did with Bennett Tech a few years back. Good company. Good man, David Bennett. You crushed him just to get his patents." Hallie stopped breathing. Her fork clattered onto her plate. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Phoenix didn't notice her reaction. He was focused on Pendleton. "David Bennett was weak. He over-leveraged. I did the market a favor." Hallie felt a wave of nausea and rage so strong she had to grip the table to stop her hands from shaking. Weak? Her father was the kindest man alive. Phoenix had manipulated the stock price to force a margin call. It was theft, plain and simple. "Are you okay, darling?" Pendleton asked, looking at Hallie. "You look pale." I just need a moment," Hallie stammered. "The heat." "Take a walk," Phoenix said dismissively, not looking at her. "Go get the contracts from the car." Hallie fled the room. She made it to the hallway and leaned against the cold marble wall, gasping for air. She wanted to scream. She wanted to march back in there and stab Phoenix Mercer with a steak knife. "Focus," she told herself. "You are here for the evidence. If you react now, you lose everything." She composed herself. She walked out to the waiting limousine. The driver, a stoic man named Frank, nodded at her. "Mr. Mercer needs the Pendleton file," she said. Frank unlocked the briefcase in the back seat. As Hallie reached for the blue folder labeled Pendleton, she saw a red folder underneath it. It was marked "Confidential, Eyes Only." Archive. Her heart hammered. She knew she shouldn't. If Frank saw her... "Frank, could you grab me a bottle of water from the trunk? I'm feeling faint," Hallie asked, putting a hand to her forehead. "Of course, Miss Bennett." The driver walked around to the back of the car. Hallie moved with lightning speed. She lifted the blue folder and flipped open the red one. Her eyes scanned the contents. It was a list of ghost accounts, offshore shell companies used to hide hostile acquisitions. And there, halfway down the list, was Project Icarus. Target: Bennett Tech. Method: insider sabotage via board member JP. Status: liquidated. Hallie pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the page. She closed the folder and placed the blue one back on top just as the driver's door opened. "Here you go, miss," Frank said, handing her the water. "Thank you." Hallie smiled, though her lips felt numb. She had it. Proof. Insider sabotage. Phoenix hadn't just outsmarted her father. He had bribed a board member to sink the company from the inside. This was illegal. This was jail time. She walked back into the hotel. The lunch was breaking up. Phoenix was shaking Pendleton's hand. "Fine," Pendleton was saying. "Your girl has grit, and well, maybe you aren't all bad. I'll sign, but you treat this company right." "I always do," Phoenix said. He turned to Hallie. "Do you have the papers?" Hallie handed them over. Her hand brushed his. For a split second, she felt a jolt of electricity. It was sickening. She was attracted to the monster who had destroyed her family. "Good work today," Phoenix said as they walked out to the car. "Pendleton likes you. You're an asset." "I aim to please," Hallie said, clutching her phone in her pocket. The photo was burning a hole in her conscience. "Tonight is the gala for the Metropolitan Museum," Phoenix said, checking his watch. "It's a black tie event. You're coming with me." "Sir, I don't have a dress for—" "I had a stylist send 3 options to your apartment. They are waiting with the doorman. Pick one. Be ready at 8 Memoir." Hallie stopped on the sidewalk. "You sent clothes to my apartment? How do you know where I live?" "I know everything, Hallie," Phoenix said, opening the car door. "That's why I'm the CEO. Don't be late." That night, Hallie stood in front of the mirror in her tiny, run-down apartment. The dress Phoenix had sent was breathtaking, a midnight blue silk gown that hugged her curves and flowed like water. It was modest, yet undeniably sexy. She put on the diamond earrings that came with it. She looked like a princess, but she felt like a spy. The gala was a sea of photographers and celebrities. When Hallie stepped out of the limo with Phoenix, the flashbulbs blinded her. "Who is she?" "Is that Mercer's new fling? Look at that dress." Phoenix placed a hand on the small of her back to guide her up the stairs. His touch was warm, firm, and protective. Hallie tried to pull away, but he held her close. "Smile," he whispered in her ear. "The world is watching." Inside, the party was in full swing. Waiters passed champagne. Waiters who looked just as tired as Hallie had been 24 hours ago. She caught the eye of a girl holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres and gave her a sympathetic smile. "Phoenix." Lydia Grant approached them, wearing a crimson dress that looked like a wound. She was holding a glass of red wine, and her eyes were locked on Holly's dress. "I didn't know the help was invited," Lydia said, her voice dripping with venom. "Hallie is my guest, Lydia," Phoenix said, his voice dropping to that dangerous low tone. "Behave." "Oh, I'm always behaved," Lydia smiled. She took a step closer to Hallie. "I just think it's funny. I did some digging, Hallie. Or should I say, Hallie Bennett, daughter of David Bennett?" Hallie's blood froze. The room seemed to spin. Phoenix turned to look at Hallie. "What did she say?" Lydia smirked, raising her voice so the nearby guests could hear. "Didn't she tell you, Phoenix? Her father is the man you destroyed. She's not here to work for you. She's here to spy on you. She's a fraud." Lydia accidentally tipped her glass. A wave of dark red wine splashed toward Hallie's pristine blue dress. It was happening in slow motion. The exposure, the humiliation, the end of the mission. But the wine never hit Hallie. Phoenix had moved with a speed that defied logic. He stepped between them, taking the entire splash of wine across the front of his white tuxedo shirt. The crowd gasped. Silence fell over the group. Phoenix Mercer, the billionaire who never tolerated a mess, stood there with a red stain spreading across his chest. He didn't look at his shirt. He looked at Lydia. "Get out," Phoenix said. "But, Phoenix, she's a liar. I said, get out. You are fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you." Lydia's mouth dropped open. She looked around, realizing she had gone too far. She turned and ran, tears streaming down her face. Phoenix turned to Hallie. He didn't ask about her father. He didn't ask if it was true. He reached out and gently brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. Hallie stared at him, bewildered. You saved me. Why?" "She told you who I am." "I don't care who you were," Phoenix said, looking deep into her eyes. "I care about who you are right now. And right now, you are the only person in this room who is real." He took her hand. "Let's get out of here. I need a new shirt, and you need to tell me the truth." The ride to Phoenix's penthouse in Tribeca was suffocatingly silent. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows of the limousine, streaking like comets in the night. Hallie sat as far away from Phoenix as the leather seat would allow, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The stain on Phoenix's shirt had dried to a dark, rusty color, a stark reminder of the chaotic scene at the gala. Phoenix didn't look at her. He stared out the window, his jaw set in a hard line. He wasn't angry. He was calculating. He was running scenarios, analyzing risk, just as he did with the markets. But this wasn't a stock ticker. This was his life. The car pulled up to a private entrance. They bypassed the doorman and took a dedicated elevator straight to the 60th floor. When the doors opened, Hallie stepped into a space that was more museum than home. It was vast, minimal, and freezing cold. The floors were polished concrete, the furniture was sharp-edged Italian leather, and the walls were adorned with abstract art that looked like violent slashes of paint. There were no photos, no personal clutter. It was a fortress of solitude. "Drink?" Phoenix asked, walking to a crystal decanter on a floating sidebar. "Water," Hallie said, her voice trembling slightly. Phoenix poured himself a whiskey and a glass of water for her. He walked over, handing it to her, but he didn't pull away this time. He stood close, invading her personal space, his blue eyes searching hers. "David Bennett," Phoenix said, the name hanging heavy in the air. "That's why you knew the logistics. That's why you understand the pressure of a boardroom. You grew up in it." "He was a good man," Hallie said, her defensive walls snapping back into place. "He built Bennett Tech from a garage in Queens. He treated his employees like family. And you treated his company like a carcass to be stripped." Phoenix took a sip of his whiskey, his eyes never leaving hers. "Is that what he told you?" "I saw the court documents, Phoenix. I saw the margin calls. You forced the stock down. You cornered him." "I played the game," Phoenix said, his voice devoid of apology, but heavy with a strange fatigue. "The market is a battlefield, Hallie. Your father, he was a brilliant engineer, but he was too soft for the war. He refused to lay off staff when the sector crashed in 2018. He took personal loans to cover payroll. By the time I acquired the company, it was already dead. I just signed the death certificate." "You didn't just sign it," Hallie spat, stepping back, her anger flaring hot and bright. "You humiliated him. You destroyed his reputation. He had a stroke the day the acquisition was finalized. He can barely speak now. He sits in a wheelchair in a state-funded facility because the insurance, which you cancelled, wouldn't cover his rehabilitation." Silence stretched between them. The wind howled softly against the reinforced glass of the penthouse windows. Phoenix's expression shifted. The cold mask cracked. For the first time, genuine shock registered on his face. "State-funded facility?" Phoenix frowned. "That's impossible." "It's reality," Hallie said, tears stinging her eyes. "So yes, I lied. I didn't come to Le Bernardin to serve risotto. I came to get close to you, to find something I could use, to hurt you the way you hurt him." She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone. She opened the photo she had taken in the car, the image of the Project Icarus file. "And I found it," she whispered. Project Icarus. Insider sabotage. You didn't just beat him, Phoenix. You cheated. You had a mole on his board. Phoenix looked at the screen of her phone. He stared at the red document. He read the text. Insider sabotage via board member Simon Banks. Phoenix's face went pale. He set his glass down on the table with a heavy clink. I have never seen that document in my life, he said quietly. Don't lie to me, Hallie shouted. It was in your car, in your confidential files. I have thousands of files, Phoenix roared back, his composure finally breaking. He paced the room, running a hand through his hair. I acquire companies. I don't micromanage the espionage tactics of my junior partners, Simon Banks. Simon was the lead on the Bennett acquisition. He brought me the deal. He said the board was ready to sell. Phoenix stopped pacing. He looked at Hallie, a dawning horror in his eyes. Simon told me your father wanted to retire. He told me the hostile takeover was a formality to bypass tax regulations. He lied to me. You're the CEO, Hallie said, though her voice wavered. You signed the papers. I signed what was put in front of me by people I trusted. Phoenix walked to the window, looking out at the city he thought he owned. I didn't know about the sabotage, and I certainly didn't know about your father's condition. He turned back to her. Hallie, 3 years ago, I set up an anonymous trust for distressed executives in the tech sector. It was specifically designed to help people like your father. I donated $5 million to it. Hallie blinked. My father never received a dime. Then someone stole it, Phoenix said darkly. And looking at that file on your phone, I think I know who. The realization hit them both at the same time. The enemy wasn't in this room. Simon Banks, Hallie whispered. He's your CFO now. He's been siphoning funds, Phoenix realized, his mind racing. He used Project Icarus to sink your father, took a kickback, and now he's doing it to me. The Trident deal. The loophole you found. Who drafted that contract? Legal, Hallie said. But Simon oversees legal. He's trying to sink Mercer Global, Phoenix said, his eyes turning icy. He's shorting my own stock. If the Trident deal had gone through, the company would have collapsed, and he would have made billions on the put options. Phoenix walked over to Hallie. He took the phone from her hand, but he didn't delete the photo. He looked at it, then looked at her. You have the evidence to send me to prison, Phoenix said softly. As the CEO, I am liable for the actions of my officers. If you release this, I'm finished. My legacy is gone. Hallie looked at him. She saw the vulnerability in the man who was supposed to be a monster. She saw the stain on his shirt from where he had protected her. She thought of her father, and she thought of the truth. I wanted to destroy you, Hallie admitted. You still can, Phoenix said. He handed the phone back to her. The send button is right there. Send it to the Wall Street Journal. You win. Hallie held the phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. It was everything she had worked for. Justice. Revenge. But she looked at Phoenix, the man who had eaten her risotto, who had defended her against Lydia, who had unknowingly been played just like her father. She closed the phone and put it on the table. No, Hallie said. We don't destroy you. We destroy him. Phoenix let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for hours. He stepped closer, the tension shifting from aggression to something electric. He reached out, cupping her face in his hands. You are extraordinary, Hallie Bennett, he whispered. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, fueled by adrenaline and the sheer relief of finding an ally in a world of wolves. Hallie melted into him, her hands gripping the lapels of his ruined tuxedo jacket. For a moment, there was no business, no revenge, only the heat between them. But the moment was shattered by the shrill ring of the intercom. Phoenix pulled away, breathless. He pressed the button on the wall. "What?" "Mr. Mercer." The doorman's voice was panicked. "I couldn't stop them. They have a warrant." "Who?" "The FBI." The penthouse doors burst open before Phoenix could answer. 12 agents in windbreakers swarmed the room, guns drawn low. "Phoenix Mercer," a lead agent shouted. "You are under arrest for securities fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage." "On what grounds?" Phoenix demanded, stepping in front of Hallie to shield her again. "I want to see the warrant." "We received an anonymous tip regarding the Icarus Protocol," the agent said, slapping handcuffs onto Phoenix's wrists. "And we have digital evidence that you authorized the illegal wiretapping of David Bennett 5 years ago." "That's a lie," Hallie screamed, stepping forward. "He didn't know." "Miss, step back or you will be detained for obstruction," the agent warned. Phoenix looked at Hallie. His eyes were wide with urgency. "Hallie, listen to me. Don't say anything. Call my personal lawyer, Arthur Weiss. Do not speak to anyone else." "Phoenix, go!" Phoenix shouted as they dragged him toward the elevator. "Find the ledger. Simon keeps a physical ledger. It's the only way." And then he was gone. Hallie was left standing alone in the silent, cold penthouse. The FBI had seized Phoenix's laptop and his phone, but they hadn't taken hers. She sank to the floor, her mind racing. An anonymous tip. It had to be Simon Banks. He must have realized Hallie and Phoenix were getting close. He struck first. He framed Phoenix for the very crime he committed. Hallie stood up. She wiped her tears. She didn't have time to cry. She had a job to do. Find the ledger. Simon Banks was old school. Phoenix had said it once in a meeting. Simon doesn't trust the cloud. He keeps his dirt on paper. Where would the CFO of a multi-billion-dollar company keep a physical ledger of his crimes? Not in the office. Too risky. Not at home. Too obvious. Hallie thought back to the conversation with the driver, Frank. Frank knew everything. He drove everyone. She ran to the elevator and dialed Frank's number. "Frank, where are you?" "I'm downstairs, Miss Bennett. It's a circus. The press is already here." "Frank, I need you to take me somewhere, but not to the police station. I need to know where Simon Banks goes when he wants to disappear." There was a pause on the line. "Mr. Banks? He has a private storage unit in Chelsea, climate-controlled. He calls it his wine cellar, but he never brings any wine out." "Pick me up at the service entrance," Hallie ordered. "We're going to Chelsea." The storage facility was a fortress of concrete. Frank stayed in the car, keeping the engine running. Hallie used Phoenix's master key card, which he had given her on her first day, in case of emergencies. She prayed it had access to executive storage perks. It beeped green. She ran down the fluorescent-lit hallway to Unit 404. It was locked with a heavy padlock. Hallie looked around. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. With a primal scream of frustration, she slammed the heavy metal canister against the lock. Once, twice, 3 times. The hasp broke. She threw the door open. Inside, there was no wine. There were rows of filing cabinets. Hallie began tearing through them. 2020, 2021, 2022. She found it in the back, under a box labeled Tax Receipts 2018, a black leather notebook. She opened it. It was all there. Handwritten notes. Transfer to board member JP. 2 matters. Project Icarus. Bennett Tech Sabotage. Authorized by S. Banks. Mercer signature forged on Doc 44A. He had forged Phoenix's signature. Hallie clutched the book to her chest. She had the smoking gun. But as she turned to leave, a shadow fell across the doorway. "I wondered how long it would take you," a smooth, oily voice said. Hallie froze. She turned to see Simon Banks standing there. He was a small man, with glasses and a smile that looked like a razor blade. He was holding a small pistol. "Simon," Hallie said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "You're a smart girl, Hallie," Simon said, stepping into the unit. "Waitress to corporate spy. Quite the resume. Give me the book." "This proves you stole from my father," Hallie said, gripping the book tighter. "And it proves you framed Phoenix." "Phoenix is arrogant," Simon shrugged. "He thinks he's a god. He needed to be humbled." "And your father?" "He was just collateral damage. Business is business." "It's not business," Hallie yelled. "It's people's lives." "Give me the book, or I'll shoot you and tell the police you broke in and I acted in self-defense." Simon raised the gun. Hallie looked at the gun. Then she looked at the fire extinguisher she had dropped on the floor near Simon's feet. "You want the book?" Hallie asked. She held it out. Simon reached for it with his free hand, his eyes momentarily distracted by the prize. Hallie didn't hesitate. She kicked the fire extinguisher with all her might. It spun across the concrete and slammed into Simon's shins. He howled in pain, the gun wavering. Hallie lunged. She wasn't a fighter, but she was a daughter fighting for her father, and a woman fighting for the man she loved. She slammed her shoulder into Simon's chest, knocking him backward into the metal shelving. The gun skittered across the floor. Simon scrambled for it, but Hallie was faster. She kicked the gun under the shelving unit and turned to run. "Frank!" she screamed into her phone as she sprinted down the hallway. "Start the car!" She burst out of the facility, just as Simon fired a shot wildly into the air behind her. She dove into the back of the limo. "Go! Go! Go!" Frank floored it, tires screeching as they peeled away into the New York night. "Where to, miss?" Frank asked, looking in the rearview mirror, his eyes wide. Hallie looked at the black book in her hands. She was shaking, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "The police station?" Frank asked. "No," Hallie said, her eyes hardening. "Phoenix is already in a cell. The police won't listen to me. They'll think I fabricated this. We need to go where Simon can't hide, where the truth matters more than the law." "Where is that?" "The Mercer Global Shareholder Meeting," Hallie said. "It starts in 2 hours. The board is voting to remove Phoenix as CEO. We're going to crash the party." The boardroom of Mercer Global was a chamber of execution. 20 board members sat around the massive mahogany table. At the head sat Simon Banks, looking ruffled but triumphant. He had bandaged his shin and straightened his tie. "It is with a heavy heart," Simon announced to the room, "that we must vote to remove Phoenix Mercer from his position. The arrest is a stain on this company. We must distance ourselves immediately." "Agreed," said an old man at the end of the table. "Motion to terminate." "Seconded," said another suit. "All in favor?" Simon asked, raising his hand. The heavy double doors slammed open with a force that shook the room. Hallie Bennett stood there. She was still wearing the midnight blue gala dress, now torn at the hem and stained with grease from the storage unit. Her hair was wild, her makeup smudged. She looked like a Valkyrie returning from war. "I object," she announced, her voice ringing clear and loud. "Security!" Simon shouted, standing up. "Remove this woman." "If you remove me," Hallie said, holding up the black book, "you remove the only thing saving this company from federal indictment." The board members paused. Money talks, and the threat of indictment made them listen. "Let her speak," the old man said. Hallie walked to the head of the table. She slammed the black book down in front of the chairman. "Phoenix Mercer didn't steal from Bennett Tech," Hallie said, staring directly at Simon. "He did." She opened the book to the marked pages. "This is Simon Banks's personal ledger. It details the forgery of Mr. Mercer's signature. It details the offshore accounts where he hid the stolen pension funds. Funds that were meant for my father and other employees. The chairman put on his glasses. He read the page. His face turned purple. "Simon," the chairman asked, looking up, "is this your handwriting?" "It's a forgery," Simon stammered, sweating profusely. "She's crazy. She's the daughter of David Bennett. She has a vendetta." "I do have a vendetta," Hallie said calmly. "But I also have Frank, the driver, who drove you to the storage unit 20 times in the last year. And I have the security footage from the facility showing you pulling a gun on me 2 hours ago." She pointed to the screen on the wall where she had cast the video from her phone, the cloud backup of the security feed she had accessed in the car. It showed Simon clearly waving the pistol. The room erupted. "Call the police," the chairman ordered. Again. Simon Banks tried to run, but Frank blocked the doorway, crossing his massive arms. "Nowhere to go, Mr. Banks," Frank said. 3 months later. The sun was shining over Central Park. It was a crisp spring day. Hallie pushed the wheelchair along the paved path. In the chair sat David Bennett. He looked frail, but his eyes were bright. He was smiling. "Look at the ducks, Dad," Hallie said softly. "Beautiful," David rasped. His speech was improving every day, thanks to the top-tier specialists he was now seeing. A figure approached them from the path, tall, wearing a casual navy sweater and dark jeans. Phoenix Mercer looked younger, lighter. The weight of the world was gone from his shoulders. He walked up to them and knelt beside the wheelchair. "Good afternoon, Mr. Bennett," Phoenix said respectfully. David looked at the man who had once been his enemy. He looked at Hallie, then back at Phoenix. He nodded slowly. "Phoenix." Phoenix stood up and looked at Hallie. He took her hand. "How was the board meeting?" Hallie asked. "Boring," Phoenix smiled. "Without you bursting through the doors, it's just old men talking about dividends. We missed you." "I'm busy," Hallie gestured to her dad. "I have a new job, managing the Bennett Rehabilitation Foundation." "I know," Phoenix said. "I'm your biggest donor." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Hallie," Phoenix said, his voice serious, "you served me the impossible risotto. You saved my company. You saved my life. And you taught me that money is cheap, but trust is expensive." He didn't kneel. Hallie hated clichés, but he held the ring out. It wasn't a massive diamond. It was a simple, elegant band with a sapphire the color of the dress she wore that night. "I need a partner," Phoenix said, "for the business and for the life. Will you say yes?" Hallie looked at her father. David Bennett gave a small, approving thumbs up. She looked back at the billionaire who had learned to be a man. "Only if you promise one thing," Hallie said, a playful glint in her eye. "Anything. No more Campacci crudo. It's terrible." Phoenix laughed, a real loud laugh that turned heads in the park. "Deal." He slipped the ring on her finger, and as they kissed under the canopy of the budding trees, the ghost of the ruthless CEO vanished, replaced by a man who had finally found the one thing money couldn't buy. And that is the incredible story of Hallie Bennett and Phoenix Mercer. From a waitress taking a stand to a woman taking down a corporate empire, Hallie proved that true power doesn't come from a bank account. It comes from the heart. Justice was served, Simon got what he deserved, and Hallie's father finally got the peace he needed. If you loved this story, please smash that like button. It helps us create more dramatic stories just for you. Did you think Phoenix was guilty in the beginning? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new episode. We have a new mafia romance story coming next week that will blow your mind. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.